welcome to our latest game. We're playing a small skirmish today. It's set in the peninsula in 1811. It's the Battle of Arroyo, Molinos, and the British have surprised a French force who are occupying this this village behind this dry riverbed. The French have got a large brigade here. They're all unformed and they're just coming out of accommodation overnight, coming out of their tents and out of the village, and their bivouacs as the alarm has just been sounded that a British column is approaching. They're supported by a French cavalry brigade, which again hasn't been out scouting. It's just again mounting up in the rear there. So two brigades for the French originally initially on table, and attacking those is the front of the British formation here. So this British brigade, which is Howard's brigade, of Hill's division, are assaulting the outskirts of the village. We'll be back in a second with some victory conditions. All right, so we have Charlie and Dan playing today. Charlie, you're going to command the cavalry, and Dan, you're commanding the infantry. The infantry. Okay, so Dan, you can be General Gerard. You're the overall commander-in-chief, so you'll have to boss Charlie around for a change. So here you are, you're General Gerard, and your brigade commander is down there in the centre of the village. So all your infantry battalions are currently unformed, and you'll need to roll for them each turn, as with the cavalry, to try and form them up. And remember, without forming, they can't move. So on the first turn, you'll need to roll a 6 to form them. On the second turn, a 5 or a 6. On the third turn, a 4, 5 or a 6. So your army will gradually come into formation, at which time Hill's division will be assaulting the village, seeking to destroy the French. So in terms of the victory conditions for the battle, the objectives for the British are to destroy as much as they can of Gerard's formation. We'll do that by breaking the brigades, and simply for Gerard, it's a matter of surviving the assault. All right, let's see what happens and what surprises may be in store for both players. On we go with turn 1. Before we get going, just a brief reminder. So we're playing on a terrain mat here. This is from Cigar Box Battles. It's really nice, as you can see. Charlie's got his hand there on a hill, so we just put some hill terrain underneath the mat, and it folds and forms very neatly over it without leaving any nasty rippling effect. It's got some great underlying patterns on it. I've got several of these now, so really enjoying using these. The trees are from Last Valley, and the buildings are Conflicts buildings. You can pick them up off eBay. They're about £20 to £30 each. And all the figures you can see in this game will be Perry metals used today, with 1 or 2 Perry plastics. So the dragoons, for example, that Charlie has got his hand by again here, they're Perry plastic dragoons, but the chasseurs and all of the French infantry battalions are metals, as are all the British we have on table at the moment. All right, let's roll for ADCs. So the Allies have 1 ADC on table. We need a 3+ to activate with those ones. And our other off-table ones, we need a 5 to activate. So we simply have 1 ADC for the Allies this turn. Charlie doesn't get an ADC, and then Dan. Okay, and then for the off-table brigade, you don't. So you've only got 1 ADC as well. We'll decide what to do with those. We'll roll for activation, and then let you know who's won initiative. All right, so we've rolled for initiative. Charlie rolled a really good roll. Got a 9, didn't you, for the French? But unfortunately, we rolled a 10 for the British. So the British get to move first. We'll have initiative for this first round. We'll get on and see. Let's see where the British go, and then we'll see the rolls for forming up for the French units. Now the alarm has been sounded. Okay, so we've done our skirmish fire, and we caused 1 casualty on the British light infantry. They're the 60th Rifles, actually. And the 60th Rifles caused no casualties in return. Now let's roll for ADCs for the British. They get 1. And then they're off tables. Again, don't give them anything, so they've simply got 1 ADC. What about the French?
We've got 1 as well.
Okay, I'll put it on my attacking brigade. No, they need it. They get their reroll. They can move forward. And then I've got some reserves, who also are active. All right, for the French.
I've put a reroll for Charlie's
cavalry. Okay.
Go for active.
Infantry.
Is active as well.
Does it matter if they had a reroll?
Okay, let's roll for initiative then. Both of us are on our roll. We've rolled a 10, another good roll for the British. They get it, so the British get to move first. Let's see if they do indeed charge across the river. All right, we've done charges and movement. So the Highlanders have charged into the village, into the unformed French battalion in the charge phase. And then in movement, the 71st Light have moved up and being at least veteran status, have been able to form into line. And other British troops now are continuing to arrive on table. So we've got a 2nd British Brigade now arriving in the rear of their attacking formation. Here for the French, these 2 battalions in support haven't been able to form up, but the 2nd Battalion in the village has formed itself as well. So we've done defensive fire, and the skirmishers supported the troops being attacked in the village, and they have inflicted 2 casualties on the Highlanders, and they took an extra casualty for charging at full speed across the dry riverbed, which we're treating as difficult terrain. So 3 casualties now on the Highlanders. That's it. I don't think there'll be any other... there will be some firing from the British riflemen this turn, but we'll come back with the first assault on the village and see how that goes. Back in a second. All right, let's assault the village. So the Highlanders lose a dice for attacking a built-up area, but gain 1 for being veterans. The French get 4 dice because they're unformed. Let's see how we do. Highlanders do quite well. They get 4 casualties. The French get 3. That'll be enough for them probably to hold the village. The Highlanders will make a decision as to whether they continue the assault, but given that the French have supports and the British haven't been able to get infantry assault orders in place, the British can't use their own supporting troops. So I think the Highlanders will recoil from this attack, despite the fact that they've won, and we'll see where we go in the next turn. Okay, in turn 4, the French have done well in terms of forming their troops. Pretty much everything is formed apart from this 1 infantry battery here. Charlie has activated his whole cavalry brigade, and he's moving his foot artillery battery forward as well. Actually, this artillery battery is part of the infantry division, so you need to decide which brigade it's attached to. We'll do that properly. I know we were rolling it with the cavalry, we weren't doing it quite right. Charlie's cavalry has moved forward to the edge of this bit of light woodland. On the Allied side, unfortunately, the front brigade went hesitant, so they're taking the opportunity to deploy into line and move the Highlanders out as well. The 2nd Brigade has now started to deploy into attack formation, and British cavalry, so we've got some light dragoons there, and the good old British hussars as well have moved on table to also support the attack. All right, let's see how we do as we move into the next turn. Okay, so the British have done their movement. Unfortunately, this brigade here was hesitant. The horse artillery has moved through that gap in the hedge line and moves forward in support of the cavalry, which have moved up to this fence, threatening the French on the other side of the ravine. Down here, the British skirmishers and the 71st Light have moved forward to start exchanging musketry with the French. The British down here have moved forward. Over here, Charlie, did you have to advance with the guns? You didn't, you just unlimbered, didn't you? Charlie's unlimbered his foot artillery battery there, so we might have some serious firing from the French. Let's do the artillery fire then first. So the French battery will open fire against the Highlanders, is where you want to fire, isn't it, Charlie? You roll a 5. That goes down to a 3 because you unlimbered this turn.
It won't be anything.
It won't be anything, and you'll take a fatigue casualty with a 3. That's 1 casualty on the gun. The exertion of unlimbering and firing was too much for the gun crew.
It's a great start for the gun crew.
Great start for the gun crew. All right, do you want to fire the skirmishers, Dan? You can fire them at the Highlanders if you like. You will have 4 dice, needing 5s or 6s. You roll 1, that's 1 more casualty on the Highlanders, and then you can fire out of the village at the British skirmish screen. So again, that will be 2 dice at the British lights. No casualties there. That's it. That's firing done for the turn. That's the end of turn 5. The turn and the game is racing ahead. Let's see what we do as we move into turns. Okay, so the French are firing. They fired the artillery at the rifles that are plaguing them, but didn't... Oh, of course, 1 casualty, didn't they, Charlie, against that British unit of 60th Rifles. Now we got this French battalion opening fire against the Highlanders. You haven't moved, so this will be a standard volley, Dan, and I don't think you've taken any casualties. 4 will be nothing. You lose fire discipline, indeed. All right, your guys in the village opened fire when the 71st Light charged in. So that'll be French firing complete. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so the British will fire back. So we'll fire the Highlanders. They charge the skirmisher screen, you're right, so they won't be able to fire. We'll fire the rifles at the artillery battery. We caused 2 casualties on the artillery battery. I think they're now on 3 for some reason, Charlie. Yeah, because they had a fatigue casualty as well, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Yes, they did. Yeah, they took it last time. And then we're going to fire our battery there against your dragoons on the hill. This will be at long range and -4 because we deployed this turn. We roll a 9, so it was a risky one. That still goes down to a 5. At long range is half a casualty. So if I roll a 4, 5 or 6, this will be a casualty on the dragoons. It's not. So that's it for firing. So in turn 6, the final action of the turn is the 71st Light charging into the village. Can they make a dent on this French position? All right, let's do the combat. The British do have a decent chance here. They get 7 dice to the French 5. Let's see if we can win this one by 2 this time. Again, a not too bad roll. We cause 4 casualties for the British. Let's see what the French do. They do 2. The British do capture that first part of the village. The French are thrown out. So the British didn't charge this turn because they want to form up their units. But they were charged by the French, so there is a defensive volley for the Highlanders. This will be at -2, but it will be a superior volley. That's pretty terrible. They've rolled a 5. Even at a superior volley, a 3 is going to be not a great result. They lose fire discipline. All right, so no casualties on the French as they charge in. Let's do the charge determination, Charlie, or Dan, whoever wants to roll. I've got -2 because I'm on 8 casualties. I think that's the only modifier, but I am veterans and you're line, so it becomes a -1.
Yeah.
You're going to put your brigadier into that combat?
Yeah.
Yeah?
We will, because you'll attach yours and you'll just...
I'll attach mine as well.
And that will cancel it out, so it's still technically...
Okay, so it's... I get a 10.
Minus...
Hot dice for the British
5.
in this game, 5. So 10 becomes a 9. So the British have won by 4, so that's a -4 charge result. So the attacker retires with 1 casualty, and that's it. Okay, in turn 7, the British have fired. The skirmishers caused another casualty on the gun. The 71st Light, who are now occupying the village, opened up, but didn't cause any casualties on the French. The British artillery battery on the hill here has caused a casualty against the dragoons in a discipline test, but they have passed. So now some return fire from the French. Charlie, do you want to fire that artillery battery against my skirmishers? That's another fatigue casualty on them. They are in a bit of a sorry state now. That's 5, isn't it, Charlie, on those? Mm-hmm. Okay, and then Dan to fire. You're going to fire your skirmish screen. Yeah. So that's 5 bases. So that's 4 combat dice, 4 dice against the Highlanders. Wow. That's a discipline test because you've got a double 6. And it's 4 casualties on the Highlanders. So the Highlanders are indeed wiped out by that skirmish fire. That's tragedy for the British, and the British will be on a falter. All right, then firing, you can fire back at the garrison in the village, if you like. You've got 3 dice from your other village garrison. That goes down to 1 because you're firing at a built-up area.
Will it be Mr. General because the general was in the unit?
Probably will, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that's 1 casualty on the lights. Okay, and then your battalion in column could fire. Okay, so that's, wow, that's pretty good. That's a 10. So it goes down to a 9 because you're firing at a built-up area. That's 3 casualties. We halve that. That goes down to 1 more casualty, but I do have to take a discipline test.
-1.
So I go unformed, but I'm elite, so it's +2. So that's an 8, so they're fine.
It'll be -1 though still, because casualties.
So I rolled a 6, goes down to a 5, yeah,
Right.
-1, +2 is a 7. So they are fine, they stay formed.
Should we roll the rest of general?
Let's roll the Rista General. You can roll that, Charlie, if you like. No, he just survives. So the General joins the rest of the brigade. All right, it's not looking too great for the British at the moment. This is the start, or that is the end of turn 7. let's start turn 8. Okay, so the French have allocated their rerolls to their infantry reserve, which has just started to arrive on the table in the rear there. Unfortunately for the British, we only got 2 ADCs, so we've allocated them both to our Fulter test in the centre, as that's vital for this attack to succeed. We failed to get off our cavalry, which were in a position to charge. This brigade down here are active, but let's roll our Fulter test. A 6, they obey orders. That's a big relief for the British. They can carry on fighting in the centre. All right, how have you done on activation on the French side? Let's roll for the cavalry. They're active. The brigade in the centre, has it got a re-roll down?
No, it's just that back one that's got
Okay, and that needs its re-roll?
Yeah.
It does, so the reserves are active, but...
It's completely even on the bowl.
Okay, so let's roll for initiative. The British had it last turn, and they roll another tremendous one, and 11. We need a double 6. Can you do it, Dan? Or Charlie? No. 1 6 only. All right, the British retain initiative as we move into turn 8. All right, turn 9. The French artillery is in dire straits, taken 6 casualties and could get blown away this turn, which is a hope for the British, as that might cause a Fulter test on the French infantry brigade. The British 71st Light, though, have now taken more and more casualties in this village. Dan rolled several double 6s in the last couple of turns, and indeed rolled a double 6 with one of his battalions firing. So that caused another 2 casualties on the 71st Light. And we've been suffering from a shortage of ADCs on the British side. So let's see if we can do better this turn. That's not any better. That's terrible. 1 ADC for the British. We're going to put it on our cavalry.
Oh,
Our cavalry active, our elite brigade is active, and our reserve brigade is active. So poor ADCs, but we've got everything active. I saw that. Charlie, you can tell from his face, wasn't a great roll. Are you active, Charlie?
no.
No, that's the cavalry not active. And Dan is inactive too.
Those have got the one at the back active.
Okay, so the reserves are active.
You've only rolled for those ones, isn't it? This one?
No, they,
No.
yeah.
Those ones were.
So let's roll for initiative. Nothing off the British.
Oh,
Wow,
okay.
if we can't do anything else, we can roll initiative in this game. So we're on turn 9, and the British have had initiative 8 turns in a row.
Charges?
So charges. The British cavalry are going to charge the French. Okay, let's roll for the cavalry charge here. It's +3 for the British because they are elites and they're on better mounts. So let's see how they do against the chasseurs. We roll an 8. Charlie, what can you get? Wow, pretty good. You roll a 10. I will re-roll my 2. I get a 12 +3 is 15. I don't think it's worth it, Charlie. I don't think you can get much better. You're on, at the moment,
-5, isn't it?
I've won by 5. I'm melee with a lan. You melee unformed. If you re-roll, you might get victory. I might get victory.
No.
You're not going to re-roll? All right, let's move into that melee then at the end of the turn. And that's it for melees. Let's do firing for the British first. Okay, so we're in turn 9. It's crunch point here. So the French on this flank have deployed in line and moved their skirmish screen up. And the British are swinging their 2nd brigade to the right to try and crack this formation on their right flank. In the village, it's still stalemate. The British don't want to push forward because they're taking a lot of casualties. We've got a key cavalry combat to do on that left flank. But the French, as you can see, have got reserves coming onto the table. So that might well secure this position for the French. Not long now, 3 turns left, and the British really need to capture this village if they're going to bring off a victory. All right, let's do... we've done charges, haven't we, over there? So we've got a cavalry combat to do later on. Let's do firing. British to fire first. We'll start with the British skirmish screen, going against the French skirmish screen, and we cause 1 casualty, Charlie, on the French skirmish screen. We'll then fire out from the village. We've got 9 casualties, so we lose dice. I've got a feeling if we're elite, we might actually gain 1. Let's just check that.
You would lose 2.
No, you don't. You don't
You'd
gain
lose 2,
anything.
wouldn't you, because you're...
I lose 2 because of the casualties,
And
yeah.
also you're informed from the exalt.
No, I'm not informed. I filmed up about 3 turns ago. No casualties from that battalion in the village. And then we're going to fire the gun at long range against this battalion in column. And 8 is 1 casualty, I think, at long range, isn't it, Charlie?
1.
1 casualty on that French column. That's it for the French firing. Sorry, for the British firing. As you can see, the French artillery battery is no longer in position here. It had taken 6 casualties. And Charlie and Dan decided prudently to do an emergency limber. That takes it up to 7. It's 8 for an artillery battery to break, so they haven't broken, but they have pulled them back. They do an automatic retire move and indeed concluded the best thing to do was take it off the table. So the British have driven that artillery battery away, but unfortunately not broken it, so no Falter tests on the French. All right, let's do some firing, Dan, by the French. Do you want to fire your infantry battalion into my 71st Light again? See if you can roll your 4th double 6 in a row, whatever it may be. So you've got your column to fire. Okay, that's an 8. It did look a bit ominous for a while. An 8 is one more casualty. One more casualty against the British. And then you've got one more dice from your skirmisher. No, it's -2 going into a built-up area. Nope, so that's nothing. Then you've got your skirmishers against my skirmish screen. So you've got 4 dice, normally 3s, because you're firing at skirmishers. Wow, 2 more casualties and a discipline test on the 95th Rifles. They passed the discipline test. But have we lost another base, Charlie? We have. That's not good. I'll have to pull back that skirmish screen in a second. All right. Any more firing from anyone? No. All right. Finally, melee over here. This could be the British last chance of victory as we crash into those chasseurs on the far side of the table. All right, let's roll this melee combat. Looks pretty good for the British Hussars, being elites. Yeah, that's a pretty good set of casualties. They've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many have you done, Charlie? 2. So they win by 3. So we take the ground and you rout. You will disorder, or in fact, I think your dragoons will have to retire. With your routing chasseurs, and you will have to take a Falter test. All right, key moment on the game. The British Hussars were victorious, smashed through those chasseurs, and they've disrupted the dragoons as well. This is a Falter test, Charlie. Let's see how you do for the chasseurs. You've got a re-roll. You roll a 2, and a 3. That's a retire off table. I think you've lost your cavalry brigade. All right. That's it. Now let's roll for normal activation. Okay, so I was really hopeful that this British assault was going to crack this French flank this turn. But Dan rolled. What did you roll, Dan?
11 and then a 6 on the combat roll.
Yeah, 11 and then a 6. So he's done 6 casualties against this attacking battalion. We just rolled the destiny test, the discipline test. I rolled a 4, which goes down to a 3 because of 6 casualties, which is a retreat. So this whole 2nd British Brigade, which spent the whole day getting up to its assault on this flank, has been thrown back by a ferocious French volley at the first time of asking. So looks like the assault against the right flank of the French line is now doomed to fail. Okay, so you can see the French reinforcements that were coming onto the table have all formed square. The British cavalry has moved up onto this small hill outside the town and pinned all of these French units. So reinforcements won't come into the village, but it doesn't look like the British cavalry will be able to make a dent. They do have a flank charge against this battalion in the village, but remember it's charging the British this turn. So I think that's pretty much it for firing. There's no other unengaged units that have got to fire. So let's move on to hand-to-hand combat this turn, which will be the French trying to fight their way into the village.